Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Coach Kyle, and today's topic is how to deal with fear, mostly in your athletes. Like they're scared of something, terrified of something, nothing's working. What do you do? I'm Kyle Thalman, aka Coach Kyle. I'm an engineer, a coach, a philosophizer. I invented the wizard coaching method because it works like magic. And please share, subscribe, all that good stuff to this channel if you like it. Before we get into dealing with fear in your athletes, I want to tell you a quick story. I was in California visiting my good friend who's the head cheer coach at San Jose, California University. And we were at an open gym, and we're just playing around, throwing stunts, doing backflips and spotting kids and stuff. And one of his athletes came in, and he's like, "Hey, Kyle, could you work with this girl on her back handspring?" And it was just this side of dangerous. So, I mean, she wasn't going to kill herself, but it was not pretty. I mean, bent arms, legs everywhere. And I was like, yeah, I could totally fix this. So I went into my coaching stuff. I was like, all right, we got this drill, we got this drill, we got this drill. Like 12 different types of drills. And half an hour later, it was like nothing was working. We'd do the drill. I'd see her getting better at the drill. I'm like, okay, now put that into the thing. We go for the back handspring, and it's gone. Just gone. No change whatsoever. And I'm like, I think you're just too freaked out about trying the back handspring to be able to do anything about it. I was like, ugh. So, like, practice our open gym ended, and nothing. She didn't have the skill any better than when we came in. And I was so frustrated. I was like, this doesn't even make sense. And Kelvin's like, well, you're kind of right. She was just too freaked out, too scared of the skill to get anything from your coaching. I was like, light bulb. And then I was reading something about the autonomic nervous system, how certain things like you're dilating your pupils and like your breathing rate and your heart rate and the fight or flight response is not a conscious choice. You don't pick what happens to those things. I mean, you can control your breath a little bit. With practice, you can kind of control your heart rate, but like whether or not you go into flight or flight, try that. Like it's almost as like try dilating your eyes. Just make them wider, make them close. It's really hard to do without like some crazy forms of practice and meditation. So I started working on this, and here's what I got. Let's start with what causes this fight or flight response. It's like fear, anger, worry, grief, and sadness. So basically all bad emotions get stuck into this bucket, and they keep piling on. And once you pass a certain threshold, your brain says, okay, it's not just uncomfortable or scary, it's life and death. And that's when it switches into fight or flight response. What are the signs of this? So if you're watching your athletes and you're giving them corrections, but it doesn't seem like they can actually make the corrections, they'll also have rapid breathing. Their heart rate will be through this ceiling. They'll have pale or flushed skin, or it'll be going back and forth. So they're super white and then bright red and then super white. That's a bad sign. If their pupils are dilated, that's also not so good. If they're trembling or shaking, that's pretty clear. Or if they're like over sweating, really clammy skin, they could also have like super dry mouth. It's like, okay, what's going on here? It's probably fight or flight. So what happens in the brain? Well, first off, it turns off digestion and your immune system, because you don't really need those if you're trying to fight off a tiger or run away from it. You'll get the kids will get stomach aches, or if they're constantly afraid of skills, they're probably going to get sick more often in the gym if that's the case. So you really want to, if you see these things constantly in kids, you want to teach them to calm down so it doesn't lead to chronic diseases and other problems. Another thing your brain does in fight or flight is it pumps oxygen away from the brain into the arms and legs because you got to fight or run, so fight or flight. But doing this, it shuts down your higher functions of your brain. So it shuts off like 90% of your brain. All of your thinking capabilities, all of your focus capabilities, just gone. Okay, so in that instant when it's like, fear spikes while they're doing a back handspring or a dismount off high bar, that skill for 2 seconds, their brain literally shuts down. There's no way they can focus on whatever they need to while this happens. So what do we do about it? We have to calm them down. So one thing you can try is box breathing. Okay, box breathing is basically you breathe in for a 5 count, you hold for a 5 count, you breathe out for a 5 count, you hold for a 5 count. You do this a couple times. It could be like a 6 or 7 count. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, breathe in, and do like 5 to 7 count is pretty good. But this structured breathing really, it stops them from freaking out and it turns the fight or flight response off, which is good. The next thing you can do is an NLP trick I call search and destroy. It's like search and destroy, but a little sillier. Because you have to get really creative, and it helps to have like kind of a fun attitude when you do this. NLP is an acronym for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So if you want to look that up, they got a lot of stuff out there. I suggest you read the NLP toolbook by some people. I'll probably find it and post it in the description later. But what you want to do is figure out how they are interpreting the fearful situation through their senses. So like it's going to be a visual, it's going to be auditory, something hearing, they're going to feel something. They might have taste or smell, but usually it's usually visual and touch and sometimes sound. So once you figure out what it is, you want them to change it, make it a little sillier, make it funnier, make it less threatening. So we'll start like visual. So maybe they're picturing breaking their neck on the beam or something like that. Well, what color is it? How big is the visual? Is it a movie or is it just a picture? Is it black and white? Where is it in relation to them? It could be over here. It could be over here. These things sound weird, but you start asking these questions. It's like, okay, well, dig deeper. What exactly is this picture? And then you change it. So you can make them have it small. If it's a video, you could turn it into just a picture. You could change it from color to black and white. You can take the picture and instead of over here, you make it really tiny and then you have it put them behind them. These things work really well for the visual. If it's more of a touch-based thing, like they feel nervous in their hands or a nervousness like kind of bubbling up from their stomach coming up into their chest, you go, okay, well, instead of bubbling up, you have it go the other way, and push it down into their feet or something like that. Or even push it down in their feet and then out of their body. Because you can't feel something that's not in your body. If it's a sound, maybe they have a little voice in their head that's like, you're gonna die if you try this skill. Have them change the tone, make it like a Powerpuff thing. It's like, you're gonna die if they have this skill. Make it silly and kind of fun, and it will change how they are perceiving this scary event, and perception kind of is reality. It's working if in the beginning you say, okay, are you really terrified? And they'll be like, yeah, out of my mind. And at the end, it's like, well, how do you feel now? Better. Okay, if they're like, no, it's the same, keep working at it, keep coming up with like weird, strange things, look up some more NLP tactics. Usually it works pretty well. So all of a sudden from terrified and scary, now they've reversed all those feelings, or they made it weird or funny. And when they think of like, back handspring on the high beam, instead of like, oh my God, I'm gonna break my neck, it's, the Powerpuff Girls are like, yeah, you could do it, you're awesome, or whatever. They actually giggle. That's a great sign. If they're giggling when they're thinking about the skill that they're terrified, you can't be happy and giggling and terrified at the same time. It doesn't work. That was a lot of stuff. It was very weird and complex, but I hope you guys get the idea. Another thing you can do with fear and mental blocks and stuff like that is give them more of a feeling of control. Let them take control of their progress and learning of this scary skill. The one rule I have about that is you have to be working and moving forward. It could be really, really tiny steps, but you have to be, working towards that goal. You can't just sit out. So if it's like back handsprings on beam, it's like, okay, how many times do you want me to spot you? 5, 20, whatever. I'll keep spotting you until you tell me to stop. But we have to keep working on it until you're ready to do it by yourself. You know what I mean? And don't put deadlines on them. That's another stressor. If they're worried about getting a back handspring for states and it's coming up, that's stress that they don't need to have. Okay, take that away. Be like, it doesn't matter. Whenever you get it, you get it. And the weird thing about this is when you give them control of how fast they progress, usually they're going to progress faster than you when you were pushing them, and they're happier about it. It's really cool and kind of counterintuitive. But you're like, all right, learn as fast as you want, and all of a sudden they're pulling you along. That's what you want. That's awesome. The last thing I suggest is meditation and heart rate variability training. Now, this is probably something you can't do at practice because, 10 minutes of just sitting there meditating, but it's definitely helpful for them to do at home. Like, tell their parents, download this meditation app or get this heart rate variability training tool and, have them practice. I did, both of these have been meditating for a while, like several years now. Definitely helps me think, helps me focus, helps me control my emotions, which is really important when you're learning scary, terrifying skills. The other thing, heart rate variability training, I got this little doohickey, and I did it like 10 minutes a night for 60 days. And it was really interesting because I could tell when my body was switching into fight or flight mode, which was really weird. So yeah, last thing, meditation, heart rate variability. Can't do that in practice, but over the long run, if you have them do it at home, whew, it will pay dividends, trust me. How to implement this in your own coaching style? Well, first, just pay attention. Okay, if you got a kid that's usually works really hard, but it kind of gets stuck on this skill or has a mental block, and like the corrections you're giving them is not working, and they're shaking, you know, their eyes are really dilated, they're sweating profusely, like look for those signs and be like, oh, well, they're just too freaked out. We have to give them control, have them do breathing, have them relax, have them chill out so that they can actually think and focus through this scary situation or skill or mental block. Once you do that, then progress will continue. Question for you guys. Do you guys have any other ways of dealing with like mental blocks or fearful athletes? Leave it down in the comment section below. If you like this video, please subscribe to this channel, like the video, share it on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, wherever. Anyway, I'm Coach Kyle. Rock on.